Hey Muse, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sky Britney and I'm a holistic and spiritual wellness practitioner, multidisciplinary artist, and emerging Caribbean historian who uses books, wellness, and art to center the Caribbean diaspora. And I'm a book lover in general. So for this video, I wanted to bring you my autumn reading wrap. Basically sharing all of the books that I've read in September, October, and November, share my book reflections and thoughts with you, as well as if I'd recommend each of these books to you. This autumn I did read 12 books, 3 of which were written by Caribbean authors. And if you are looking to read more books written by Caribbean authors, shameless plug, I do have a book club, Calypso, Palm Trees, and Sazon, where why I said it like that, Sazon. I do have a book club, Calypso, Palm Trees, and Sazon, where each month we do read books written by Caribbean authors and we talk about that in community. So if you are looking to read more books like that, definitely, or rather, I am definitely inviting you to join this space. So let's get started. I feel like I do the weirdest things in videos, but let's get started nonetheless. The sounds of New York. Bye. Okay. So I am going to start with all of my Caribbean books. And so the first one is, and if you see me looking down, it is because I'm referencing my notes in my handy dandy notebook. So the first book is How Not to Drown in a Glass of Water by Angie Cruz. This book follows an older Dominican woman who loses her job during the recession. During this time period, she has to essentially do a series of 12 sessions in order to see if she qualifies for unemployment benefits. During these sessions, we are kind of taken through some of the ebbs and flows of her life, especially as a woman that has migrated from the Caribbean. I feel like this story was very relatable, especially as a daughter of immigrants, and I really enjoyed reading about the main character, Gara. I feel like she was such a likable protagonist, especially given the circumstances, or the cards rather, that she was dealt. I really enjoyed reading this book. I rated it 4.5 stars and I would definitely recommend reading. The next Caribbean book was A Girl Within a Girl Within a Girl by Nanda Reddy. This book follows a woman who receives a letter from her estranged sister. And when she receives the letter, we're essentially taken back to the time that she was essentially forced to come to the United States from Guyana. This young girl is 12 years old, was promised this world of glamour and luxury coming to the US, and in the same breath she's also tasked with making enough money to bring her entire family to the US as well, which for a 12-year-old girl is an unbelievable task. So you can only imagine all of the things that this young girl has had to go through and all of the ways that she's had to protect herself along the way, and we really get a glimpse into that in this story. And so this was another 4.5 star read for me, and I would definitely highly recommend. The last Caribbean book that I read for this season was Frying Plantain by Salika Reed Benta. This was hard for me to rate. I kind of keep going back and forth between a 3.75 and 4 stars. But this book is essentially 12 interconnected stories where we're told that the main character, also named Kara, or Kara, I guess in English, where we're told that the main character is navigating a dual identity. She is Toronto born, but she comes from a Jamaican background, and so she is navigating what it means to be Canadian of Jamaican ancestry. It's interesting when you have a book that you enjoy, but it doesn't necessarily follow what the book says it's going to be about. I found that the story was more about the relationship that Kara had with the women in her life and how that affected the relationship she had with herself. I find that this journey of navigating identities in terms of like being Jamaican versus being Jamaican Canadian and so on, I find that that was more of a secondary plot that didn't seem like the main focus as a reader, but I can appreciate a lot of what felt relatable in the story, both from the identity aspect as well as the navigating all of those very trying relationships that Kara had. Although it was like 3.75-ish, 4-ish rating for me, this is a book that I would still recommend reading. Before I move on, I also do want to mention Mambo, Mango, and Murder. I don't remember the artist. Well, she is an artist. I don't remember the author's name, but I will put it on the screen. This book was a soft DNF. I just feel like for all the books that I was reading, they were more heavy hitters, and this book was more of like a fluffy, cozy read. And at the time, I just wasn't really interested in that. So I didn't finish it, but it is a book that I do want to come back to because it was an enjoyable storyline. It was just right book, wrong time. So I will be coming back to it, but I did want to also mention it because I was enjoying the story. Moving along. I feel like, I don't know if this shadow is cool or not. I hope it's not too distracting, but we move because this is all I got right now. Okay, so the next book we have is The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. This was a 5-star read for me. I would absolutely recommend reading. I do think that it is a hard read though. Essentially, we're seeing a young black man, or not even a man, a young black boy, a young black boy that is sent to a reformatory school. But really, this is just, can I call it legalized slavery? That's what it is. That's what it is. I think the most heartbreaking thing about this book is the fact that the school in the book is based on a real school. I feel like that just made the story come alive even more, just knowing that although this is historical fiction, it is based in history. Like, it is based on fact. And even reading like the acknowledgements, just hearing Miss Due talk about the fact that the main character is based on one of her relatives, yeah, that just made it all the more heartbreaking, just to know that our people, this is something real that they've had to go through, just to know that there are actually hundreds of young black boys that never received a proper burial, whose families never received justice or anything. It's just a heartbreaking story. So while the story is good, it's hard to say it's good because it's just like, that's how I feel. That's how I feel. But nonetheless, a 5-star read, would highly recommend. Again, the horror is in the fact that it is rooted in fact. And speaking of that, the next book is When No One Is Watching When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. This was a 4-star read for me. I would definitely recommend. This is a story, in short, whenever I talk about this book, I'm like, this is a story on gentrification, but make it a psychological thriller. The psychological thriller part is the fact that it is, again, rooted in fact. And that to me is insane, especially as a young black woman living in Brooklyn. A lot of what this book talks about, I am literally seeing firsthand, experiencing firsthand. So essentially, a young woman, I'm not gonna lie, I have forgotten a lot of the main characters' names, but this woman is noticing a pattern with her neighbors. A lot of her old neighbors, predominantly black people, are going missing. And in place of her old neighbors, wealthy white people are moving into these homes at a ridiculous rapid rate. And this drives her to tap into the history of her community. And in tapping into the history of the community, she finds out a lot about how black people are moved out of the space, and how it is essentially, what's the word I'm looking for? For lack of a better term at the moment, it's done on purpose. There is a strategy. I think strategy was the word. She starts to find out that there are so many different strategies and ways that they are moving people out of the communities in order for wealthy white people to move in. There were a lot of things that made me actually do research, and that was, again, nice is a weird way to put it because it's actually heartbreaking when you actually do start to read about the history of gentrification and how kind of the same thing keeps repeating every couple of years. So nice is the wrong word, but for lack of a better word, it is nice and interesting to be able to take what is fiction and see where it's rooted in fact. So yes, I would recommend reading this book. I feel like that explanation didn't make sense, but hopefully in editing it'll make sense, because this is all I got. I don't know if this is distracting. Let me try to move. Wait, ooh. I don't think this is helpful at all. Next up will probably be my most controversial take, but The Girls Who Grew Big by Leah Motley. That's gonna be a no for me. I did rate this book 2.75 stars, and I see where they were trying to go with the plot and the story. It just didn't land for me, and I think the main reason that it didn't land for me is because of the way that the three main characters were described in comparison to each other. So this book does follow three young women. One is Adela, who is a biracial 16-year-old that got pregnant, and because she's pregnant, she's forced to live with her paternal grandmother. The second is Emery, who is a 17-year-old who just had a baby, and the father of her child is Black, and her grandparents don't want no parts of that. And then third, we have Simone, who is a 22-year-old who has 5-year-old twins, and the father of her children are not the best, and her younger brother is the father of Emery's child. The way that Adela and Emery are described, I feel like we are made to be, or to feel, more sympathetic to their plight. And in comparison, the way that Simone is characterized, I feel like she is made to be this hard person, this rough around the edges. Just the way, even like the characteristics that she is given in comparison to that of Adela and Emery, it just didn't sit right with me. Nothing about it sat right with me. And I felt like a lot of the characterizations of those three characters as individuals and in comparison to each other were very stereotypical, and I just couldn't get jiggy with it. Good try, but no. Next, Honey and Spice and Sweet Heat, both by Bolu Babalola. I ate these books I said it in my review on Goodreads. Honey and Spice walked so that Sweet Heat could run, jump, and skip. That book was so good. 5-star read. Honey and Spice, I did give 4 stars. I loved Honey and Spice, but where Honey and Spice lost me, first of all, what are the books about? Honey and Spice follows a college student named Kiki Banjo. She has this podcast where basically she lets other young women on campus know who are the waste men, who are the gallus, who are the men to stay away from. She sees a young man, Malachi, doing questionable behavior, and she names him the waste man of the school. That turns into a whole situation where they are now in a fake relationship. The fake dating trope is not my favorite, so I wasn't fully sold on that. However, the banter between the characters, just the romance, that slow burn, ate it up, loved it. Where Honey and Spice lost me was the Beyonce references every 5 pages, especially in the first half of the book. I was not a fan. Love B. I'm not a Beehive member, but I love B. I don't want to read about her in my books. 1 or 2 references. Okay. 1 or 2, 3 at most. Every 5 pages. Also, I did read that the author did do her college dissertation on Beyonce. Bolu, I love that for you. Leave her out of the books. Leave her out of the books. It is quite literally stressful. And then the other thing that stressed me out, and it's not just this author that does it, a lot of authors do this thing where they feel like they have to make every sentence to be like this lyrical prose that is so profound. Sometimes I just need the words. I just need the words to say the thing. Everything doesn't need to be a metaphor. There doesn't need to be 20 sentences back to back filled of metaphors. And I feel like Honey and Spice did overdo that a little bit. So those things contributed to that read being a 4-star read for me. But Honey and Spice, Bolu heard the critique. and Bolu came back. In Sweet Heat, Bolu just wrote your chaotic inner monologue so perfectly. That book was so perfectly written. The second chance romance, that kind of push and pull, that back and forth between the main characters. Sweet Heat does follow the main characters in Honey and Spice years after like their whirlwind romance. So they've broken up and now they're put into close proximity because their best friends are getting married, and it just shows essentially their journey back to each other. And that book is so good. So I would recommend both of those books. Honey and Spice more so that you can get to Sweet Heat, because Sweet Heat is where it's at. Next up, Tale of Two Cities, a Halloween novella by Alexandra Warren. It's gonna be a no for me. I did rate it 3 stars, but this autumn I read so many good books that this one just wasn't that memorable. So I personally wouldn't recommend this one. Okay, that's all I'll say. I feel like I was about to go into a whole spiel, but no. Next, we have The Last Man on Earth, a survival romance by Shay Saunders. I put maybe for this one. I did rate it 3.75 stars, but the first half of the book was so good. And then the second half really fell flat and left a lot to be desired. It was just disappointing in the end. But if you would like to read this book, it is an interesting premise. It does follow a famous rapper and a flight attendant who get into a plane crash, and they are the sole survivors of this plane crash. They're navigating life on this remote island until they're rescued, and then they're rescued. And is that a spoiler? I don't think that's a spoiler. That's not a spoiler. Then they're rescued, and then they're navigating life after the rescue. So what does their bond look like, or how does their bond change after they've been rescued? Again, first half, second half, eh. All right, second to last book is Mommy by Jessica George. Absolutely 1,050,000 million gazillion percent yes, this was another 5-star read for me. Mommy was written for the eldest daughter, the only daughter, the middle or youngest daughter that has had to play the role of the eldest daughter, any daughter who has had to take on the brunt of the stress, whether financial, emotional, physical, whatso have you, of their family. I feel like this book was written for us. This book follows, I forget her name as well, but the names don't matter. It's how the book made you feel. So this follows a young woman in her mid-20s. She is the primary caretaker for her father, who is battling Parkinson's disease. She's also had to be the point of contact for all major things in her family because her mother goes back and forth to Ghana, and her brother is kind of absent. He just be doing his own thing. And I feel like this book for me brought up this constant conversation that we have in the Caribbean community. And it is this conversation of how young girls are treated versus how young men are treated. And oftentimes the young girls in families are seen as the one who have to take on everything. And so this book follows the main character as she's kind of taking back control of her life. I shed a lot of tears reading this book. I felt very seen in this book, and this is a book that I would 1000% recommend. One of the best reads of this year. And finally, the last book, Needy Little Things by Chanel Desamores. I would also recommend this book. I did give it 4.5 stars. This book is actually the last book that I read. It follows a 17-year-old girl named Sophia, is this, I think it's Soraya. Either way, she has the special ability to hear the needs of everyone around her except for the people that she loves most. She kind of has to battle whether this ability is a gift or a curse when one of her friends goes missing. I think the plot of this book was very interesting. I do like the theme of exploring what happens when young white girls go missing versus when young Black girls go missing. That was essentially the focal point of this story, and it was really nice to explore that through this very unique lens of Soraya having this special gift. There were also secondary themes of mental and physical health, as well as neurodivergency, which our main character does have ADHD, and she kind of is also navigating how that affects her and her ability and like the way that she navigates relationships and so on and so forth. I do wish that we would have explored more of the neurodivergency, as well as some of the mental health aspects that they touched on in this book. But nevertheless, for a YA mystery, I was definitely on my toes at all times, and I thoroughly enjoyed this book, so I would 100% recommend. Those are all the books that I read this autumn. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and until next time, or rather, if you would like to see more bookish content, let me know, because I think I kind of like it. All right, that's all I got. So until next time, read Black, read Indigenous, and read Caribbean. Bye, Muse.